we were FFL Selfless. I kind of rebranded when we went into IULs and annuities, but just being very transparent, like I kind of think, like in this business, you can make a lot.
Yeah, sure.
But I think there's a bigger part of like kind of giving. So I don't need to be the $1 million guy.
Right.
I'm okay. Like I'm okay if I'm the few $100,000 guy.
Yeah,
but I'd rather have other agents on my team kind of eating and winning.
Before we really get into this, let everybody know, guys, you can go to FFLconvention.com right now, get your tickets for the next event. We're going to be back in Irving, Texas, back at the Irving Convention Center, which we were talking before we got on. Phenomenal facility for what we do, right? January 28th through the 31st of 26. General admission, Spanish convention, $99. Get you access to the whole event. Premier and VIP seating. Premier seating's $299. VIP's $999. That will get you VIP. You're going to be in the first 2 rows. Premier, you're going to be right behind those individuals. But the key about those seats is that is where Sean gives out a lot of lead money. We gave out $500,000 this past event. I can't tell you how much we're going to give out next year, but it's going to be more, Tierre. Cool. So definitely go there now, get registered. But dude, you guys being overseas selling, that's awesome. Yeah. Now you said you live in Europe 3 months out of the year, you and your whole family.
The whole family, a good 3 months.
How long have you been doing that?
This would be year 3.
Year 3.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
The first try was November, December 2 years ago. We went to Paris. Yeah. And I said, okay, well, that trip I was very disciplined, like to myself. Like I'm used to dialing 8 to 8. So I said, okay, wife and kids, wherever we are, I need to be back at the Airbnb by 10 p.m. Okay. 10 p.m. local, that puts me like 4 o'clock East Coast time. Yeah. Right. So I was disciplined. I worked 6-7 days a week while I was over there. Yeah. That schedule. But then I realized, wow, I could have a lot more flexibility with this and actually do a lot of my conversations or text or setting appointments either through AI or through text messages and just tell people we're not even going to have a conversation. We're going to flip straight to a Zoom. Instead of having like a 2-call close, I just straight to Zooms. So that's what I started doing on this last trip when we were in like Italy, Spain, Greece. Greece was 7 hours ahead, so it was a little weird. But yeah, no, it's definitely been like, I think when I had my W-2, I was able to travel for sometimes. I was able to travel like a week or 2 here or there, but I always had to still take my laptop with me and be on a schedule. Whereas here, like, I'm my own business, but I can work from wherever. And the only thing that hindered me was the only negative to all of it was sleeping. When did I sleep? I slept when we were leaving like Rome and getting on a 3-hour train to Milan. Right. I would fall asleep in the train and then my kids would tap me, "Hey Dad, did you see that?" And I see what? I was knocked out. Right. Or if we're sitting at like the Vatican and we're just sitting outside looking at the trees. Yeah. I'm going to take a quick nap. I'm going to take a quick 20-minute and I'd be okay. Right. But my wife was really like, she was good with me in terms of just making sure I at least got 3 to 4 hours on a daily, and now I'd be okay. And then like 1 or 2 days, I just like crash out completely.
Right. But you got to make sacrifices to do things that, number one, most people can't do, unwilling to do. I say can't because
it's just unwilling.
Unwilling to. Yeah. But you get to do these things because you're making these sacrifices. I think people have this misconstrued idea of like, everything gets easy as you get to the top. No, it doesn't.
No, I think it gets way, way harder. Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces, which I don't think people really realize. Right. When you're selling just insurance, when you're starting, you're selling. You're trying to get a return on investment, an ROI on what you're putting out to what you're getting in return. But then when you're building your team, you're, having like I'm walking through the Vatican, having full-blown recruiting calls and conversations, or jumping on Zooms on my iPhone in the middle of the day because it's the morning in California, and it's like all the time because you're actually running a business and operation.
Right. You're senior VP, right?
Yes.
Right now.
VP, yep.
Doing right around $300K a month.
300 and change consistently, not complaining.
So it's not like, you can go overseas, you can take time to do your sales, but you can't just like leave the team out to dry. That's a whole nother job.
It's a whole nother job. But I don't even think when you're at, I don't think you should really get to that point pretty much ever because you're always adding legs and you're always going to have new blood coming in. But you can be wherever, whenever. I have a couple guys that live overseas.
Yeah.
They're based in Texas. That's where their license is, but they live other places.
Yeah.
So, I take their calls whenever they reach out. So,
what's your agency name?
Selfless Financial.
It should be FFL International.
No. Selfless came about because, we were FFL Selfless. I kind of rebranded when we went into IULs and annuities, but just being very transparent, like I kind of think, like in this business, you can make a lot.
Yeah, sure.
But I think there's a bigger part of like kind of giving.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to be the $1 million guy.
Right.
I'm okay. Like I'm okay if I'm the few $100,000 guy.
Yeah,
but I'd rather have other agents on my team kind of eating and winning.
Right.
Even when I get a lot of usually when I get a lot of leads in and I meet my 3 or 4 ROI, I give away the rest.
Okay.
Because I could give you a lead that will turn you into, 2,000 or 3,000 extra. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been great. I could have, used that, but maybe it had a bigger impact on you.
Right.
So, myself, I'm not really thinking of myself that much at all.
Yeah. That's why you've done so well.
I'm really, and I think I've done okay, and we're consistent. I always joke around with my upline and say I hope at some point all the stars will align, because we always hit the 200-300 in that ballpark there with different people every single month,
right?
Different people every month. But at some point the stars are going to align and it's all going to hit in 1 month, or we just need to add more people. But our business model is, persistency and profitability. Mm-hmm. Our persistency is like 92+% in the products we write.
Right.
So it's sticky.
Yeah.
Nobody's canceling retirement accounts.
Correct.
We don't do a lot of final expense or term. Some people do, but we don't do it a lot.
Yeah. Did you early on when you first joined us?
Yeah. When I first started, I was in the field only doing final expense. My goal was meeting in person.
Yeah.
Like, this is all brand new. I'm going to set appointments. I'm going to drive to your house, and I'm going to sit in your living room, and we're going to figure this out. And I only had 2 carriers. I had Americo or an AIG core bridge at the time. So if you didn't get approved, I was like, what does my pivot sheet say? Oh, I got to go to these other things, which I don't have. So you're going to AIG.
There you go.
That was it. It was one or done. That was it. That was, and you were getting approved because you're either approved or you're guaranteed approved.
Right.
But I did the field for like a good 1.5 years. Then I kind of went hybrid for like a year, but then I was just trying to, I think it was, I don't want to say it was hard to scale, but it was hard for me to say, convince or show the value in going out to the field for 10, 12 hours and do this, in the field, door knocking, jumping fences, like all kinds of nonsense that we do in South Florida. Like it's pretty ridiculous. Like knowing all the codes to boxes to get into a apartment complex, like all kinds of nonsense, and like having Google Sheets that have all that information. Like it's pretty ridiculous. But then I went hybrid. So I did more telesales, life call transfers mainly.
Yeah.
And then I did some door knocking and stuff in the field, but then cold turkey, I just went IULs and annuities because it gave me more flexibility, like time.
It was funny. We were talking about this before we got on. Your first year, you didn't sell any annuities.
No.
Right? You didn't start selling really annuities until what, 22?
Yeah.
Is that your third year with us?
Like my third year, yeah.
And you've done, that year you were, 1.6 in annuities.
Yep.
And then $2 million and then $2 million and change.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I want to go back a little bit, Tierre. Your background, you had a W-2 job, right? Went to college. What'd you go to college for?
Went to college. It was originally going to be architecture.
Okay.
Then realized real quick I wasn't that good.
How'd you realize that?
I realized because I went to a high school, design and architecture, senior high.
Okay.
It was a magnet school for art and design.
Got
I knew I wasn't the best then, but I was okay.
This is in South Florida.
This is in South Florida, I grew up in Miami, So I went to Dash. It's an architecture school down there. It's magnet, real small school.
What attracted you to architecture?
Well, the reason why I went to that school is because my mom, I'm an only child, right? Yeah. My mom was like, my baby, my son is not going to this big high school with 6,000 kids and get lost in the sauce.
Got it.
So I applied for 4 magnet programs and got into all 4 of them.
Yeah.
And then I liked this one because it was art and design, and I used to be into comic books and all that. And I could design comic books. I was like, this is awesome. I could do graphic design and art and be great. And I don't have to be in front of cameras. I could be behind the scenes guy my whole life. Then I got into architecture.
Here you are in front of cameras.
Well, and then what happened was I got into architecture because I saw it as like senior year kind of going in and going into college. I said, oh, this can actually be a better career path for me instead of a struggling artist per se. But then, I did the architecture thing, and then I realized really quick, like there's people way better than me at this. I'm not going to fight. I'm going to do something simple.
Okay.
My parents were like, go into business administration. Okay. Got a business administration, got a minor in finance and political science. Yeah. Good.
At that point, what were you planning to do with that? Or did you have a plan?
When I graduated, the plan was get a stable job.
Yeah.
My mom worked for the government. My father worked for the government.
Okay.
Get a stable job at like 22, 23, and have them peel you off the chair at 65. Like they have to kick you out at 65.
Right.
That was my goal.
Okay. That's not what happened. You're not 65 now, Tierre,
no.
So that's not what happened.
It's not what happened. Yeah, I was there from, I'm 45 now, but I was there from 22 till 40.
Wow. And you started as an intern, right?
I started off as an intern, then got offered a position.
Yeah.
And offered a position full-time and moved from Miami to D.C., lived in D.C. for a few years, took a lot of overseas assignments, different things to kind of help.
In layman's terms, what were you doing? To someone who doesn't know anything about government contracts, what were you doing?
Managing contracts that were, say, submitted by private organizations to see if they met the criteria of what the end goal was.
Got it. Were you the guy approving the contract?
Yeah, it was like me and a couple guys.
Okay. So you're looking at it, making sure they're checking their boxes, crossing their T's, hey, this is good to go. Yes, no, it's
cost, labor, financials, companies in good financials. A lot of
attention to detail.
Yeah, all that stuff. Very boring, like Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, it doesn't sound fun, Tierre.
Yeah, it's not. But you could literally stay in those types of positions for like forever.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, man, I could do this. Like we only really review like 1 or 2 contracts every 6 months. Like, I could do this for like a good 30 years. Like no problem.
Were you making good money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like over $100,000 for like my whole career.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't like, I don't have like a, back against the wall.
Right. You don't have the rags to riches story.
No, I mean, I guess I was poorest in college, but I think everybody is.
Right.
Because we didn't have NIL deals back then,
Yeah.
That's, different times. But, but yeah, no, it just, when I was leaving there, when I had to think of, I was in DC and, living in DC, then I was getting kind of homesick, missing Miami.
Okay.
Was
your wife back in Miami?
No, I dragged my wife from Miami to DC.
Okay.
Our kids were born in Fairfax, Virginia.
Yeah.
We flew back to Miami probably every 6 months or every 6 weeks, more like it, really, to visit family because they want to see the baby girls. We bring them home, stuff like that. Every time we fly back, my wife and I both probably would cry, shed a tear as we see the beach disappear, and then we go into the brown waters of like everything up north. It's a very different experience. And then, I was trying to get back to Miami. So I took a transfer sort of position back to Miami. I was working remote. And then it was like in January of 2020. So I was remote from 2009 till basically 2020 anyway.
Okay.
I was remote before remote was a thing.
Yeah.
Right. We were
But prior to that, you did some work overseas, right?
Yeah. So when I was in my position, anytime there was like a role to be overseas or another job op or a 3-month assignment or something like that, I would always take it.
Yeah.
But it was mainly just me and my wife at that time. The kids really weren't around at that point.
And so 2020, you start looking for a job? Like, how do you, because this seems like, I hate to say good job. Some guy told me years ago, the word good job is an oxymoron, right?
Yeah.
It's some jobs better than others, but at the end of the day, it's still a job, right?
Yeah, it's still a job. It was still, like not necessarily a 9 to 5 because of the level of responsibility. I was basically working 7 days a week for like a decade, like forever, all the time, always on call, always on responsibility. But January of 2020 was when it kind of hit. I was in Miami remote, and my job said, hey, we need you to move back to DC to take a promotion.
Okay.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'll come back. Like, I come back every so often. They're like, no, you need to be here permanently. And I was like, oh, wow, what's my other option? And they were like, well, you could quit. And I was like, okay, well, send me the paperwork for the transfer and all this stuff or whatever, and we'll get the relocation done and all that. And I tell my wife, hey, we're not going back to this place. There's no way I'm going back to DC. And she was like, you need to find something else to do. Yeah. But the salaries in Miami are not what they are in DC.
What were you making at this time?
177.
Got it. Yeah. And what was the promotion going to be?
230.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So
so hard to, at that point, kind of hard to turn down from a financial standpoint.
From a financial standpoint, but if you're used to South Florida, and like I always say it, but I'm being very honest. Like, I don't play a lot of tennis now, but you could play tennis in February. In Florida, but you can't do that up north. No. Like, they don't have indoor courts anywhere that I've seen. I've seen soccer, but I'm not into that.
You don't even want to go outside up here in February, do you? Like, get to your car as fast as you can. Yeah. Hopefully you have a remote starter.
Yeah, it wasn't like when I was living in DC or up north, I was like vitamin D deficient. Never in my life. But then all of a sudden I'm vitamin D deficient. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, no, we started with the job. I was like starting to do the transfer paperwork and stuff like that.
Oh, so you're going to do it?
No, that was not the plan. The plan was to figure something out. Yeah. So one evening, I was outside on my patio, had my feet up, was on the laptop, and I just, it was like in April, and I was searching on YouTube, like, how to be a millionaire. And 3 things popped up.
Wait, that's really what you searched? Yeah. How to be a millionaire.
Because I was for 3 or 4 months, I was like, I need to figure something out.
Yeah.
I need to figure something out because I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to go back to this place that I don't want to say, like, if you're used to South Florida like your whole life, and then you go to a foreign land, you know, the mid-Atlantic, it's just different seasons and all that. I'm not into seasons. Like my wife was, I'm not really into it. Like, I like summer and hotter than summer. Like, I'm good with that.
That's like one season, bro.
Like one season. I'm good with that. Like, you know, that's okay. But yeah, so I went on YouTube and I was like, how to be a millionaire. And 3 things popped up. It was financial services, real estate, and tech. And tech, I was like, well,
the game show didn't pop up. That's an option too.
No, there's the 3 things. The real estate, I already have my real estate license, and I wasn't really using it anyway. So I was like, no, that's probably not going to happen. Tech, I was like, well, I'm not a nerdy. I don't know what about that. Financial services. So then I dug into that a little more. It took me on like a rabbit hole. Financial services took you to life insurance and health and Series 66 and all these different things. Series 62, 70s, whatever, right? Yeah. So I said, health insurance, I'm definitely not going to do that because at my W-2, whenever people would ask me about health insurance, I would tell them to go to HR. I don't want to deal with it. Like, go talk to somebody else. So I definitely don't want to do that. And then life insurance was like, okay, you need to go get your license. Okay, so where do you get your license? Oh, Excel course. Okay, how much is that? And then I paid for the course. Yeah. I did the course by myself. I got licensed.
So you weren't talking to any companies yet. You just, life insurance, that's how I'm going to make $1 million. Let me get my license.
Yeah, this is going to be a different cash flow.
Yeah.
Completely. Okay. So took my schooling. I went inside. I said, hey, babe, you know, I'm going to do this online schooling for life insurance. Every day I need to be on this for at least 8 hours a day. And I'm going to do it from the patio. Don't worry. I'm not going to bother anybody, but I need to focus for 8 hours.
What did your wife think at this point?
She was like, whatever, you got about 2 months before you got to figure this out. Whatever, you got to figure this out. I said, okay. So I did the course. I passed my test. Doesn't matter if you get them all right. In Florida, it's 150 questions. You have to get 105 right. So you get 45 wrong.
Nice.
Right? So I remember the testing. I was like, okay, I got about 100 right.
Yeah.
Let me go C all the way down. And I passed.
There you go.
93. I was like, all right, cool. Because the odds were in my favor anyway.
You got a 93.
93, yeah.
You overachieved.
We
had to get 70. I got like a 72 on mine.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
But it doesn't matter.
Right.
And I was done in they say it takes like 3 hours. I was done in an hour and a half. Because once you already know how many you have right, who cares about the rest?
Exactly.
I got like all the health wrong. It didn't even matter.
Right.
But then once I got licensed, that's when my phone started to explode with phone calls. You know, all these phone calls and emails from all these little circle logos were calling me. And I remember it was like Ivan's team and Mark Mead's team and some team out west, which didn't make any sense. I was like, where do these people get my information from? But at the end of the day, I was like, you know, in hindsight 2020, I look back and I'm like, man, I hung up on Mark Mead. I hung up on Ivan.
Wait, hold on. You hung up on Mark Mead?
Yeah.
So how'd that happen?
Well, because
he called you.
His team called me and said, "Hey, Tierre, I saw you're just licensed. We're looking forward to getting you into the business," and explain everything. And I said, "Where are you from?" "New Jersey." I said, "I don't know anybody from New Jersey." Click, hung up. And then Ivan Vendros calls from Universe, and you know, we're running the biggest agency and this and that. And I was like, "Yeah, you seem very nice, but I don't know anybody in Chicago. Like, I don't know how this is gonna help me."
Right.
And I was like,
the last time you had a job out of state, they wanted you to move.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be recruited. I was trying to see what the best opportunity was and put me in a good spot. So I was like, yeah, no thanks. I appreciate it.
You didn't know what FFL was at that point.
No, I had no clue. Honestly, I didn't even put it together until later that all these little circles were part of the same.
Well, you thought they were different companies.
I had no idea. I didn't know what all these little because it's not just the FFL companies; it's all the other companies too, like all the starter or what do they call it? Practice companies reaching out and stuff.
Wannabes.
Yeah, all that stuff, right? And then there was a company out west, which was Golden State.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know anybody. Golden State? What is this? Come on, man. Click. I don't even know you guys. I was like, is this, what's going on? And
you were like a bad lead, dude.
Yeah, I wasn't, because I wasn't trying to get recruited, I didn't have any patience for it either.
Yeah.
I just was like, what's the next move to get moving? So then I remember it was one of Universe's admins reached out again, and then my question was like, so what did the who's the person who sells the most life insurance? And they were like, for your company, and they were like, oh, it's some guy Stevens, Giordano, and I was like, oh, Steven Giordano. Okay, cool. Click, hung up. Like that was the end of the conversation. I'm not talking to any of these people. I blocked all their numbers. Like I'm not dealing with any of it. But I went on Facebook and it was on a Sunday night. I messaged Steve and I said, hey, Steve, I hear you sell a lot of insurance. And he's like, yeah. I'm like number 2 in the company. I was like, cool. Why aren't you number 1? He's like, I'm going to be there next year. I said, okay, cool. I said, do you have an office down here? And he's like, yeah, I'm in Pompano. It's like 2 hours from my house.
Yeah.
I said, all right, I'll be there tomorrow morning. What time do you open? He's like, I'll be there at 8. I was like, all right, cool. I'll be there 7:30. So then I tell my wife, hey, I'm going to drive blindly to some stranger's office. I've never met him, but I've messaged him on Facebook because this could be the opportunity so we don't have to move back to D.C. And literally I drove there. I was there at 7:30. He was there at like 7:30 also. He's like, hey, you're on time. I was like, yeah, early is like on time, late is late, right? Yeah. He was like, or on time is late. And he was like, yeah, I like that. He said, come on in. I'll show you what I do. And then I saw him leads, call people, keep it moving.
Yeah.
Work a schedule, 8 to 8. His wife was there at the time, Margot. She got me connected that day. He was like, hey, do you speak Spanish? I said, no, I don't speak Spanish, but my mother-in-law does. She's licensed.
Oh, your mother-in-law was licensed?
Yeah, she was licensed. She was working for a different company before. Okay. And kind of part-time, realtor, mother-in-law, relaxing sort of thing.
Right.
So I called her on the spot. I was like, hey, I need you to come work with me and get appointed with these carriers to handle these Spanish cases. They're not going to cost you anything. I'll just give them to you.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, I'll do it. Of course. She'll sell for doesn't cost her anything. So then that's where we kind of send all the Spanish leads for like a good.
Oh, so she sells with us too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Part-time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Spanish.
What was it about? I mean, because this is like, I don't want to say crazy, but it's kind of just off the cuff. Like, you had a W-2 job your whole working life pretty much, right? Government, things that people like I'd love to have a government job.
Yeah.
You're kind of walking away from that, but you reach out to Steve on Facebook, go meet him in the office, and did you know at that point, like, I'm gonna work here, I'm gonna do this?
Well, when I got to know him a little bit and his background, and I said, okay, this is my honest mindset. If he could write a mill and I wrote a quarter of that, I'd be good.
Yeah.
I replaced my salary. So that's what my mindset was.
Right.
Like, okay, I don't have to be number 1 guy. I could be like number, 8,000 guy and be still at a quarter and be okay. And that's what it was. So when the 6 months kind of came up from my job, then instead of moving, I took a leave of absence, which bought me.
So you had 6 months to make this decision?
Yeah. Then I took a leave of absence for 6 months because I told him it was going to be a hardship and stuff like that. So I got a 6-month hardship, but I was doing insurance. And then in that 6-month time, I basically made my salary.
How much did you make with us in those 6
At
months?
6 months, 207.
You made 207 with us, and you were making right around 2. Right.
Yeah. Well, I was making 170.
170. Yeah, you got the promotion. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I spent like 30 or 40 grand in leads, but I made this. Okay, I'm exactly where my W-2 is, but at least I now have the chance to get better.
Right.
So then my wife was like, I think you already made your decision. I was like, yeah, I think I'm out.
Yeah. And
when I told my job, they were like, what? What do you mean? No, we're preparing. I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going. I was a rep. Yeah. I flew up one time, grabbed a bunch of things that I had. Like, I was into like bobbleheads at the time. I had a whole bunch of bobbleheads in my office. I cleaned up all the bobbleheads, and I went there like in shorts and t-shirt and a baseball cap, and like cleaned up all my stuff, and like caught a flight out, and that was the end. I never went back.
It's so funny when you leave a W-2 or like when I didn't have a W-2. I was working construction, but my wife worked at a bank, and our goal was let's retire her from the bank before we have kids. But then when you let the people at the job know that, dude, they act like you're like going to sacrifice your children or something.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you're going to give up a good job? Like, yeah,
but
absolutely.
You know what you see in the W-2 also is, depending on your level, like I was a high level. Yeah. So like I would see when we would terminate somebody, like we didn't give them any notice. I saw people kind of leaving left and right, and I was like, man, we didn't give them any notice?
Right.
What if they don't give me notice?
Correct.
I was like, that was more of a worry. Like if they don't give me notice, I'm up a creek.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make sure I don't have to worry about anybody giving myself notice. I'm not gonna give myself notice, right? So I just need to be in charge of myself.
Now, before you got your license, you never really did any sales, right?
No. I worked like one summer. Like it's probably aging me too, but I worked like one summer at like Circuit City.
Yep.
But it was just me and guys hanging out in college, selling cell phones to people. Like I forget what those companies were back then, Sprint and like Primeco or like those.
You have Singular Wireless down there?
We had that up here. AT&T or something like that, but those penny phones sort of thing. Yeah. Right. But we were just hanging out. We were selling, but we were just hanging out mainly. But that was pretty much the extent of it. And I was only there for maybe like 6 months.
What was that transition like for you early on? Did you struggle when you first tried to start selling? Did you pick it up right off the bat?
Well, not so much a struggle. I just knew I had to have a schedule and be consistent. And, it was dialing leads. Yeah. And then it was setting appointments. And you'll laugh maybe, and I kind of laugh hindsight 2020, but I would set like 10 appointments a day. And if I sold one a day, 6 days a week, I was excited.
Really?
Yeah. And my upline, Steve, I call him, he's like, bro, hey, I sold one. He's like, yeah, but how many appointments did you have? And I said, I had like 8. He's like, dude, you only sold one?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, bro, but at least I'm selling one.
Right.
I was selling one a day, 6 days a week. I was profitable because it was final expense, $2.50 leads, little mailers, old second chance mailer leads that I buy for like $1, $1.50. And that's what I would work. But my mindset was just sell one a day. But then what happened is I started getting better, and I would go like 6 for 8 or like 8 for 8. But then your mindset kicks in. Oh man, if I went 6 for 8 this day, do I have to work the next day? Yes, because I already have appointments. Yeah. Right. So I just try to keep it very simple in terms of I have to follow my schedule. My calendar says I'm working 8 to 8 Monday through Saturday. I'm going to do that no matter the outcome.
Right.
There used to be the thing, 10K or die, right?
Yeah.
10K or die, and that's it. I would always go 10 applications or die. It didn't matter the AP.
Right.
But the applications mattered because that means I was working.
Looking back, do you remember what the biggest changes you made to go from closing 1 out of 8 to 6 out of 8?
My own confidence, knowing that I knew more than the client and figuring out their why.
Yeah.
Was a bigger thing. In the beginning, it was like kind of going through the motions of the script and sort of thing. But then really listening listening to what the client actually needed or wanted. And I was never really hard on pushing somebody into something. Mm-hmm. Like if they told me no, I would just like, I would take one no and I close my stuff. And they were like, you're only going to take one no. I was like, yeah, I got so many appointments. I can't even keep track because I was just going with my schedule.
Right.
So like persistency for me has always been fairly high anyway, because I wasn't selling a bunch of stuff people didn't need. Mm-hmm. But it was just, I think you just get better over time and not giving up on yourself too soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that self-confidence is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like you have to know that it's your job to help these people. You have the ability to, versus I hope I can close someone, you know?
Yeah, no. And look, my first week I made appointments. I didn't show up because I was like too timid to go into the house.
You didn't show up.
I didn't show up.
So you no-showed them.
I no-showed them. I drove to the houses. I made appointments. I made like 26 appointments for the week.
Okay.
I drove to the houses. I was in my own way, and I did not get out of the car. And I went back to the office, and Steve says, hey, so what happened? How'd it go? I said, no, man, I didn't do anything. He's like, what if those people died? It's your fault. So then I went back like the next week.
Yeah.
And I ended up selling like out of the 26, I think I sold like 10.
Yeah. So did you call him back?
I called him back and I go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought it was this week, not last week. And they were like, oh, it's okay. We're home. I was like, okay, no problem. I'm going to make it. So then I was kind of double booked most of the time. But yeah, I sold like 10 out of those. I think I got like 20 of them rescheduled.
Right.
But it was more so just getting out of my own way and then understanding the big picture of it. And then you just get better over time, you know?
We were talking about this last podcast. I had Desiree Blass up here. And talking about that concept of like, you're perfect example. You book these appointments, whatever, you're nervous, something's preventing you from going inside. It's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But then the following week, when you actually build up the nerve to push through and get uncomfortable, you realize, shit, that wasn't as bad as I thought it. Like, right when you ran that first appointment, what'd you think? You finally went in the door.
I was like, wow, this is pretty chill. I can do this. And the people feed you. This is awesome. Right, I was like, I was eating the whole time, you know? No, it wasn't that bad at all. I was like, wow, I can get, if I get better at this, I'll have more appointments. I'll have more people that I help. And I just got to give myself some grace.
Yeah. I always say there's, two things. I learned this from Sean 15 years ago. Attitude, activity. Mm-hmm. Perfect. You had the activity. You had the appointments.
Yep.
But the attitude was where you needed to work on. And it's always one or the other. People think like there's this mystery to how do I get good at. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Look at the work you're putting. I'm putting in the work, Mike. All right, then fix your mindset. It's not that. Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah, it definitely
is. There's no other factors. Those are the only two.
Yeah. And it took me probably like 2 weeks to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because then I was also like, okay, I'm setting these appointments. Like, why am I not showing up? It seems kind of dumb. Like, why even set appointments? Why not just go home? Oh, because I have to have a job. Okay. All right, so let me just do it.
Dude, that's right up there with, I think it's Andrew Taylor who when he first started dialing would hang up on the person, like they'd say hello. I think the first lead he talked to he hung up on. Yeah, that's right up there with that.
Yeah, it was like, because think about it, I never went into somebody's house. It was in the middle of 2020. Mm-hmm. Every time I came home, it was like a whole detox process before I could go inside my own house. For 20 minutes. Right? You know what I mean? It was a whole process. Yep. So it was definitely interesting. But then, what made it really comfortable too during that time is I started doing like picnic table outside appointments. So I'd have these pop-up camping chairs and a pop-up table. And, people were like, no, I don't want you in my house. I'm like, great. I don't want to go in either. Let's do it outside. I even brought bug spray, and I would light like a citronella candle and let it burn. And they're like, oh, there are no mosquitoes out there. No, I took care of that. Just bring yourself out here with your driver's license. Perfect.
That's awesome.
So I started doing that. And, I did the field for like a good year and change, but then kind of transitioned out completely.
Yeah, when did you transition remote?
Probably to 22.
22.
Yeah.
And you talk about this being a true work from home business. Like back in the day when you started, now you guys had the option. When we first started, it was you had to go out. There was no telesales option, right?
2020 was it was field.
Yeah, it was field.
Yeah.
But the carriers had some options to do tell, which, you know, we were late adapters as a company.
Yeah.
But back in the day, you had no choice. You had to go out. But now, if you join us now, there's no reason to go to a client's house. You don't have to.
No,
you could work from anywhere. To what we talked about early on here, you're overseas in Europe working.
Yeah. You can literally do this from anywhere.
Anywhere.
And it's a very different time. Like, you know, somebody hanging up on the phone with you, not a big deal. Like, you just call the next one.
Yeah.
But somebody like slams the door in your face or tells you to get out of their house, like, it's a bigger like mental effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it is somebody just clicking on you. You could call them back the next morning. You could call them with a different phone number or something like that. Like,
and you're in your house or your office. Like.
Right. It's just a completely different vibe. But I think it's definitely easier now.
Yeah.
You just have to have more volume to kind of overcome that non-personalized sort of in-person sort of thing. But you know, even when you were in person, if you book 10 appointments, only 6 show up. Like, there are only 6 people home because 2 other people forgot. Yep. Oh, you're coming today? Yeah, we talked this morning.
Right.
Oh, you're coming? Like, you know, that would always happen. But you definitely can do it from wherever and work different time zones. Like me personally, I work a lot of Central and West Coast, so my day generally starts later. My day usually starts like on the phones like around 12 or 2 Eastern time because I'm dialing out west or Honolulu or wherever. But when I go to Europe, I'm dialing mainly East Coast because the time difference is only 6 hours, not 9 hours, you know? So you just kind of have to factor that in.
Yeah.
But you can literally do this from anywhere, and you could do one-call closes. You could do pitch to Zooms. Generally, I'm working IULs and annuities, so a lot of it is pitch to Zoom.
Yeah.
I don't do that many one-call closes, and I find the persistency on my one-call closes is lower than on my 2-call, so I kind of stick to the 2-call.
So you do initial call to set up an appointment?
Yeah, it's kind of like a discovery call to see if it makes sense for you. It's not a sales call.
How long is that call normally last?
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay. What are you looking for on that call?
What were you looking for when you were looking at the IUL information?
Yeah.
You know, do you know how it works? How's your health?
Got it.
Like high-level health.
So in a few minutes, you determine if it makes sense. Then you're setting up an appointment to do a Zoom.
Yeah. And even if they tell me, oh, yeah, like I had a heart attack 6 months ago, great, no problem. I'm not discounting them. I'm not throwing them to the side. Because if they show up to my Zoom, that actually means they want something.
Right, right.
And then we have all the carriers so I can help them with whatever. And then explain it to them. Like, oh, you can't get an IUL because of this, but let me show you what I put together for you. Right. I'm going to show you this paid-in annuity that's going to compound interest and grow, but we're going to give you a big death benefit on the front with a whole life policy because you don't have any insurance. Yeah. And then keep that for like 8 to 10 years. And then cancel it off because you don't really need it unless you want to, but you're compounding interest over here. So once you have all your tools and you kind of know how to use them. Yeah. And then for like agents on my team and even outside of my team, we do like this pitch to Zoom process. So like new agents on my team, they'll do the conversation and then they'll pitch to Zoom to my calendar. I pop in and I say, hey, Mr. Client, hey, sorry, Mike, there was actually a system update and I didn't get a chance to train you on it, so I'm going to go ahead and mute you out, and I got your info on your client, so I'm going to go ahead and help your client.
Got it.
And I close a deal for them, and the agent cash flows, the agent learns.
You split it with the agent.
On my team, it's a very low split that I take. Yeah. Like, very low.
Good.
Like,
good for you, yeah.
I don't need it.
Right.
And that's part of it. It's
Absolutely.
like, I don't want to even say it out loud because people think I'm probably ridiculous, but outside, it's not even a 50-50. It's even lower than a 50-50 because what you need to learn is you need to learn the process. You need to get better at the process. I don't need to take your money from it. You need to cash flow.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, man.
We're going to talk more about that on the next level this week, you and me. But real quick, getting back to what you did in Europe, because I think this point is lost on a lot of people that come to, like, you can literally do this from anywhere. You were in Europe for how many months last year?
It was 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
Yeah.
How much did you sell in those 9 weeks?
About 2 and change in annuities.
2 million.
It was like
change.
2.6 or something in annuities.
Yeah.
And that issued. And in life, maybe like 70 grand.
How much you make in those 9 weeks, roughly?
It was like 300 grand or something.
Grand.
Yeah. I mean, I spent 100 of on our trip.
On the trip.
Yeah, because like my wife was like, hey, we need another Airbnb for Florence for another week because we're going to Cinque Terre and we won't be back, but we need to leave our luggage.
Yeah.
And I was like, how much is it? And she said, oh, it's like $4,000. I was like, all right, go ahead and charge it. I'll make it up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh man, I got to get on a Zoom. I got to write.
I got to get a few more appointments.
Yeah, I got to get a couple more appointments at here. So, you know, you can definitely do it from wherever. It's just, what are you going to sacrifice?
Correct.
It's like, and going back to it, it's like in the beginning, you have to sacrifice your time to kind of pour into this, to learn it, to get better. Well, now I'm sacrificing my sleep.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to be extremely comfortable and extend this trip. Because we bought one way. We bought one way over.
Yeah.
We said, all right, we'll see how long we last.
Oh, okay. So you just went
one way over, Miami to Rome, one way. And then I said, okay, we already have Airbnbs in Florence, Rome, and Milan.
Yeah.
And we have a cruise to go on in 3 weeks out of, I forget the port, but it goes like, it was the Greek Isles. Yeah. It was 8 days. And they end up in Greece. I'm like, all right, we're in Greece. What are we going to do? We're going to stay in Greece? Let's stay in Greece for a couple of weeks. Stayed in Greece for a couple of weeks. I didn't like it there too much. It's a beautiful city, beautiful place. The Wi-Fi wasn't that great. 7 hours threw me off big time. 6 hours I could do no problem.
Hit that one extra hour. Gets you.
Extra hour gets you because instead of starting at 11 at night, I was starting at midnight. Midnight to 5 is big difference than 11 to 4. You know.
Yeah. So with sacrifice, with a good work ethic. You can literally do this from anywhere.
Yeah, you. I mean, there's so many memories too that like we shared, like our kids saw, like everything. Like we saw all of Italy, everything. And there's like memories and pictures and things. And a lot of times I look like with bags under my eyes and I was tired because I was. Right. But I mean, those things we won't ever get back.
The other thing that is lost on a lot of people is the lessons that you're teaching your kids in this, right? Like you're over there, you're enjoying vacation, but they know that Dad's back at the hotel, or he's up at 11 to 4 in the morning working so we can have this.
Oh, yeah.
It's one thing to tell your kids, hey, get a good job, work, do all these things, but you're a living example for them, which that education is priceless. Yeah,
it was funny. One day I was doing a Zoom with a guy in California, so it's an 8-hour time difference, right? And it was like a 4 a.m. Zoom, so it was like 5 in the morning, and my older daughter always gets up really early for breakfast. She walked into the kitchen, and on one of these Airbnbs, I was set up like a dining room table, like kitchen set up, mic and everything. And I take the boom mic. I have everything. I have a boom mic with me that I travel with. I have headphones. 3 screens. I'm like all hooked up. And she comes in and she says, what are you going to make for breakfast? And I was like, oh my gosh, is it the morning? Because I was still
like, what time is it?
I was like, oh my gosh, in 1 second, I got to finish up with this client. And she was like, oh, okay, I'll make something. Don't worry, I'll make toast or whatever. And I was like, okay. Because I always get up with her and do breakfast and, sort of thing. But yeah man, it was definitely like they definitely know why I put in the effort and the work, to take care of them so they don't have to think of anything, don't have to worry about anything. Granted, I was an only child, and like I just being very honest, like I didn't have a struggle growing up. My parents had great jobs and I was only one. Yeah. Right. My wife is one of 4. And her parents had okay jobs, but 4 is harder to financially take care of than 1.
Shit, who are you telling?
It's a big difference, right? Well, I don't want my kids to like have to worry about I didn't have to work in college. I don't want my kids to have to work in college. Can they do stuff that's beneficial? Yeah, like they help me with social media stuff for myself, for the team, for different things, and I use them as a tax write-off, and I pay them, right?
Absolutely.
But they see the value in it too, and it's competition between the two of them. Like they can't
and
both.
They're gonna learn more from that tier than going to work at Wendy's. And I'm not hey, if you got listen, I had a job since I was like 12, right? But my kids are not in the position I was in. My son the other day was like, I'm gonna get a job. I'm like, no, you're not.
No.
You're going to finish school. You're going to play sports. You're going to enjoy the time when you don't need to have a job.
Correct. You're going to be a child a lot less time than when you're 22 and you're graduating college and you're trying to figure out your life. You have from 22 to whenever you leave the earth to be an adult.
Correct.
Enjoy being a child.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap with a little true or false, Tierre. So you've seen True Talk. I'm going to throw some statements at you. You're just going to let me know in your opinion if they're true or false, all right?
Sure.
Are you ready?
I guess so.
Most people already have enough life insurance through their job.
False.
False. Okay. Door knocking and in-person sales are outdated in today's market.
False.
You can't be successful in insurance without prior sales experience.
Completely false.
A great agent talks more than they listen.
False.
People buy based on logic, not emotion.
Completely false.
Your upline should be responsible for your success.
False.
You need to know every product before you start selling.
False.
A lot of fallacies here.
You almost need to know nothing.
Correct. The best agents are the one who treat this like a business, not a hustle.
True.
If someone says, I already have life insurance, they're not a good lead.
False.
Mindset matters more than skill in commission-based sales.
True.
True. And last but not least, you can do this business successfully from anywhere.
True.
True.
Yeah.
With us.
With
Family First Life.
Yeah, with Family First Life and your business and your right structure and your schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're living proof. So this has been awesome.
Yeah, man.
Awesome story and just cool to watch and see and someone really taking advantage of what we have here, you know.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming up.
Yeah, no, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for sure.
Absolutely. And appreciate you going out there kicking ass, selling a bunch of annuities and life insurance. So you're Annuity Hall of Fame 2 times?
One time. I was 1.97.
Ah, you just missed it.
Yeah. I was just like, I should have thrown 10 grand in somewhere, but yeah.
That's all right. You got the blue jacket.
Blue jacket. I've never been Life Hall of Fame.
No. You were close a couple years.
Yeah, I was close. I was like 12 grand off a couple years in a row. It's all good. I mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot of last year and the year before, I was giving away a lot.
Yeah.
You know, to help the team grow.
Right.
And to help other agents grow. And Hall of Fame, I appreciate it. But it's like at the end of the day, whichever jacket you're wearing, are you profitable?
You're still Hall of Fame. And are you profitable? Absolutely.
Are you profitable?
Yep.
Like, if you're profitable, cool. If you're not, like, your goal should be profitable. What's your ROI? Not
what's been your best year with us, income-wise?
Probably this last year. Yeah. I mean, I deposited like 700 and
700.
change. Yeah.
What'd you spend? What were your expenses roughly?
63,000.
2,000.
Yeah. I spent like $5 grand a month.
Not a bad ROI, dude.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. No. Especially when you mix in annuities to the mix.
Correct.
It's like, you know, obviously you're doing like IUL spend could be $3 grand. Yeah. I just don't believe in, you know, okay, so I didn't make 20 this month. I'm going to spend double to make 20. No, that means there's something wrong with your process.
Right. Correct.
Because like if you're spending 5, you should make 30 to 40.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you need to spend 20 to get to 30 or 40.
Right.
It means something's wrong in your process and the way you're doing it. We need to fix that. So like I spent $5 grand a month for the last 3 years. That's it.
Yep.
That's easily to account for too. Like that's 1 IUL.
Right.
That's 1 or 2 IULs. Not a big deal.
And now with the ability to work from home or wherever you're at, you know, you're not covering gas, car. Like, dude, we used to put on 1,000 miles a week in these cars in an average week. My
first year, I had like a Hyundai. I actually still I had that Hyundai until recently.
Yeah.
Hyundai Ioniq, like a hybrid.
Okay.
I bought it for this job.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm going to be in the field. I need to get rid of my SUV. I need to get a little compact hybrid. I bought a hybrid from some place used or whatever, 10 grand. And I was like, okay, I'm going to pay this off and it'll be whatever. I paid it off in like 2 months because commission checks and things like that. But I put 54,000 miles in 1 year.
I believe, yeah.
Because Miami, the market was South Florida where everybody else was working. So I made my market the Keys 3 hours away or Ocala 6 hours away, Northern Florida.
Right.
And for that, I was putting a bunch of miles in the car.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but
if you're full time, you're putting 1,000 miles. When we were in home, 1,000 miles easily in a week.
Yeah. And then honestly, I've kept my life simple where, I have, you know, homes and vehicles and stuff like that. But for like me personally, my wife is always taken care of. The house is taken care of. Me, I just got rid of that Hyundai recently. And it was funny because like I showed up to an event, like a black tie event, me and my wife. My wife didn't want to drive. So we get in my little blue car, a little Hyundai, and I pull up to this event. And one of my friends says, "Hey man, what happened to your car?" And I ran out to it because I thought somebody hit it or something. And he was like, "Why are you driving that, dude? You make great money. Like you're comfortable." And I was like, "Dude, it's just a car.
Right.
Like I don't need anything fancy." And he's like, you should get something fancy for yourself. And I was like, it's okay. This thing has been paid off for 4 years. Like, who cares?
There you go.
But I recently just got myself a new car. But even then, I don't drive it.
What'd you get?
I just got a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Tiguan, a little SUV thing. But
you're all working from home, so what do you
I got it in November.
Yeah.
And I've put like 800 miles on it. I don't drive.
Right.
Like to school, to my kids' school, to the gym, back.
Yeah.
That's about it. And my wife has a big SUV. She takes everybody out in it. It's like, as long as she's taken care of in the house, like I don't really care about anything else, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm not flashy. I'm not super fancy. Like just keep it really basic and boring.
Right. Just the colorful hats. I like you had one on at convention too. I don't know if it was the same one.
Yeah, it might. No, I usually wear the hats. It's funny because in my office, in my home office, I have the halogen lights bothered my eyes.
Okay.
So having light eyes is like it's like a blessing, but it's also a curse.
Even on rainy days, I'm wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse,
Absolutely.
right? And I tell my daughters the same thing. Like, you're gonna love having light eyes, but it's a blessing and a curse. And they're like, "Why is it a blessing?" Oh, because people love light eyes.
Yeah.
But it's a curse because you always have to have sunglasses.
Yep.
So yeah, I found like some goofy hats, and when I tell people on Zoom like, "Hey, I'll be a guy in a baseball cap with like a flamingo on it," they're like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they show up to the Zoom, they go, "Oh, I like the flamingo." I'm like, "Thank you, it's right there."
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming up, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't already. Go to fflconvention.com, get registered. Also, Ignite. We go to Ignite events. There's an Ignite conference in Phoenix in June, and there's going to be one down your way in Florida towards the end of the year. So,
cool.
You know where to find us every week right here on True Talk. Don't miss TNL this week with Tierre. We're going to talk about these IULs, annuities, we're going to dig into really how you're doing this from a distance, and that, what you call it, pitch to close?
Pitch to Zoom.
Pitch to Zoom. So find out all about that on the next level. We'll see you there.